What's up, guys? I get a lot of shit from friends and family and coworkers about having a pretty impractical car collection. So I've got the Firebird Formula, which is obviously a track car. Over there in the grass, you can see my turbocharged V6 Camaro that I built with some buddies in high school, sort of a sleeper drag car. I've got the C5 Z06, which is obviously a track car. You guys have seen videos of that before. And then we've got my Mustang GT, which is also track prepped. And the goal of this test is we're going to take this car on a 3,000 mile road trip. We're going to swap out the trusty Michelin Pilot Super Sports here. And we're going to put some Bridgestone Blizzak WS80s on there so we can find out just how bad of a winter daily driver a track prep Mustang GT on a good set of tires is. There's a huge storm forecasted for our drive up to Minnesota, so hope you guys enjoy. Mother Nature really came through for us on this test by delivering everything from a flash flood to freezing rain and one of the worst winter storms of 2016. Our trip started early one Saturday morning bolting up the Blizzaks. My first impression of the tires is that you feel like you're driving on a bed of gummy bears. By that I mean they're surprisingly quiet and comfortable, but they significantly decrease the on-center precision of the steering, which is then compounded because the tires have this tendency to wander down the road, so you're making lots of little vague corrections. It's not a big deal, but it's definitely noticeable. Six hours into our trip, we hit the leading edge of the storm. The Blizzaks proved to be a decent rain tire, although they're slightly more prone to hydroplane than something specifically designed for standing water in wet conditions. The rain eventually turned to snow, and then it briefly stopped. The temperatures then dropped drastically, and then the freezing rain started. I was forced to slow down to about 35 miles an hour, not because of a lack of traction though, but because my defroster could only keep a small circle at the center of the windshield free of ice. When we finally stopped at 1 a.m., a few hours short of our destination, the snow was up to the front splitter, and the car had taken a few hard hits from ice chunks that had fallen off other vehicles. In Army survival school, I always had to walk point at night, because no matter where I was in the formation, at nearly a foot taller than anyone else in my squad, I'd always catch unseen spiderwebs with my face. But when I was on point, all my vertically challenged colleagues were perfectly safe. The Mustang has the opposite problem. As the lowest car on the road, I was often plowing the road for the rest of the people foolish enough to be out in the blizzard. Ground clearance is certainly the biggest of the Mustang's three drawbacks as a winter daily driver, the other two being the transmission and the brakes. The regular Brembo pads just don't work when they're really cold. In one negative 13 degree Fahrenheit panic stop situation, they significantly increased the pucker factor because the brakes had no bite at all for that first half second after I slammed the pedal. The other limitation is the transmission. One eyelash freezing morning at 6:30 a.m., I cranked up the Mustang and I tried to drive off. My plan was foiled though when I tried to shift out of first gear. After sitting overnight in negative 22 degree Fahrenheit temperatures, the transmission was a single speed. It was all but impossible to get it out of gear. And then once it was out of gear, there was no way to get it into any others until I had rolled to a stop again. So I abandoned the idea of driving away, and I scampered back inside. After trying 6 different combinations of control arms, 3 sets of springs, and swapping out the shocks, I was at my wit's end with wheel hop on the Mustang. Turns out, it was just the Michelin Pilot Supersport tires. In the name of science, I did burnouts and drifts in every possible condition, from high grip to low grip, rough surfaces to smooth, and the car never so much as hinted at wheel hop. After all those burnouts, and driving 3,000 miles, often overloaded, and at much higher temps than the tire was designed for, I was prepared for some pretty severe wear, especially on the rear tires. But the tread depth gauge doesn't lie. All 4 tires showed 13/32 of tread, exactly the same as when I bolted them on 2 weeks prior. So after 2 weeks of driving on ice, snow, mud, and everything in between, the easiest way to explain just how good the Blizzak WS80s are is to look at the number of accidents and cars recovered from the side of the road during that horrible winter storm that we drove through. The fact that this stiffly sprung, over-dampened track car wasn't one of them says more than any glowing review that I could give. Always remember, tires are the most important part of your car. Drive safe out there, and as always, thanks for watching.